Sketchcraft is recorded in front of a live internet audience and supported by listeners like you. Please be sure to leave a review on iTunes, like and share our Facebook page, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All links can be found at sketchcraft.com. That's Sketchcraft, C-R-A-F-T, the name of the podcast.com. Remember, every little bit counts and it all helps to grow the show. Thanks. Welcome to Sketchcraft, the podcast for art, games, and process junkies. I'm Rob Duenas, full-time illustrator and graphic artist Esquire. This is an unedited podcast, which will probably contain strong language, so listener discretion is advised. Welcome everybody to Sketchcraft, the podcast for art, games, and process junkies. I'm Rob Duenas. Different format today. With me today is Brandon James. Say hello, Brandon.
Hello.
Hello. If you don't know Brandon, he's an up and coming artist out in the Phoenix, Arizona area, somewhere between the borders of Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've known Brandon now since about 2007, I think. And usually we see each other annually, like at cons and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Random conventions.
Right, and you know, the past few months or so, we've been hanging out on Skype while I draw and talking about movies and stuff. And I've been getting a lot of requests, as weird as it may seem, for me to like talk about what I think about basically like comic book movies and things like that, since they somehow relate to the show somehow. So I figured I'd try that. I'm going to be really honest though before we get into all this. I'm not really getting into like serious film study here. You know what I mean? If you guys want to go hear like ultra film geeks get into stuff, you know, go listen to Slash Film or Screen Rant or something. But this is pretty much my take, and I think it's always great to have someone to bounce off something to talk to. Hence Brandon, and Brandon seems fairly well spoken until I turn on the recording button. We'll see how that goes. And you never know, man. I hit that record button. Sometimes people just clam up, and you're like, "Good job."
Right, you got a little stage fright.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but I think this will be pretty fun. So let's just get right into it. Today we're going to talk about the movie Pacific Rim. Now, if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend
not seeing it.
That you know what I mean? Like, I just recommend that you know ahead of time that I'm going right into spoilers talk. So if you don't want to know anything about it, you know, just don't listen to the podcast. All right? I'm not even gonna try to split this all up. So let's get right into it. Brandon.
Yes.
Pacific Rim, really quickly. What is it about? Like, what's the basic premise?
Giant robots fighting giant action figures, aliens coming out of the ocean, out of the Pacific.
Right. So it's basically like an ode to the, you know, Ultraman kind of like, you know, super robot. Was it a Manzinger Z, you know, / Godzilla, Japanese 70s kind of stuff, right?
Pretty much, and mixed with, I want to say Power Rangers and Voltron and every other all form the head type people where they all join up to battle.
Right. Now you would think, right now, I'm going to take a step back really quick. This is Comic-Con week here in San Diego. So I'm going to roll back the clock here to about a year ago when they were doing previews at last year's Comic-Con for Man of Steel and things like that. And I remember everyone wanted to know at the time, what's Man of Steel like? What's Man of Steel like? And the sites like Slash Film and Ain't It Cool News basically only wanted to talk about, they're like, oh, it was kind of boring, but you got to see Guillermo del Toro's new Pacific Rim. It was just monstrous. It was insane. It's going to be the biggest thing ever. And if you don't know anything about Guillermo, he was the director of the Hellboy movies. He did Blade 2. He did Pan's Labyrinth. You know, before that, I think Mimic and stuff like that. And he was supposed to originally direct the Lord of the Rings, Hobbit films and stuff, but that didn't work out. So he's got a lot of geek cred. Guillermo's a pretty passionate filmmaker / ultra geek, you know. I like hearing the guy. I think he's a really cool guy. But his movies have always been hit or miss with me, and I bring up last year's Comic-Con because right now we're sort of seeing the, when you get the buzz at a con. The buzz at the con was Man of Steel's boring. There isn't any action, and Pacific Rim is over the top, the greatest thing ever. All geeks rejoice. It's the new Star Wars, right?
Right.
And doesn't look that way right now.
No.
Doesn't look that way at all. You know, I think the word was what, too much action in Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Right. And Pacific Rim. It's weird. I think the buzz and the zeitgeist on the internet right now is that the hardcore geeks seem to love it and think it's the greatest thing ever. And if you don't get it, you're a loser and stuff
Yeah,
like
you
that.
don't fit in.
You don't fit in.
You're
And I
not a
love
true
not
geek.
fitting in. Yeah, I love not fitting in because if I remember correctly, when you're a geek, you're not supposed to fit in.
Right. You don't go with everyone else.
Right. When I was a geek, I didn't go see the Flintstones movie in high school. I saw The Crow, and I was like one of 3 people in there. While the Flintstones, right, the big
Right.
ode to a 1950s cartoon live action, was the big rage. And I was a big loser. I wanted to see this grunge-filled, weird, movie no one cared about called The Crow. My how the times have changed, right?
Right. Now, you're not a cool nerd now unless you go see the nerdy movie everyone is seeing.
Bro,
And
I'm not a cool nerd now because I don't go to Comic Con in San Diego. I think it's Movie Con. I'm like, I love movies, but I liked my Comic Con when the big key, the big key note on the card was maybe Bob Kane or, Jim Lee or a comic book artist,
right.
Now it's The Walking Dead and comic book movies, basically. So I have no relation to that show. Anyway, to get back to the movie, so I said, I know, I'm going to be honest. I love giant robots, okay? If you guys want to know where my geek cred comes from, I love Evangelion.
As do
I love Transor Z, or known as Manzinger Z. I grew up with Manzinger Z. It's corny, but I loved the cartoon as a kid. That's the robot whose hands would pop off and fly around. And then there was a chick robot. She had tits that'd shoot out. It was pretty awesome. Yeah, I kid you not, man. And then I liked Voltron, obviously, when I was a kid.
Right.
I didn't like Power Rangers when I was, a teenager. But I liked Evangelion because, you know what I mean? Like, it came out around the same time, and I was like, Evangelion is just fucking phenomenal. And I found Evangelion at Comic-Con. I had no idea what that was before I discovered it. And I just got done watching Evangelion 3.33, if you fans are aware. So I love giant robots. However, there's a movie that came out when I was a kid that I thought I was going to like, that I hated, and it was called Robot Jacks. And it basically was this movie, like, minus the giant monsters. And Robot Jacks was like robots fighting robots. There's all these nations. They have giant robots, and they sort of battle. And the guys stand in a little circle and do, like, DDR moves. Although we didn't have DDR when I was, we had, like, Power Pad. So
Right.
I was like, it was like Power Pad, and the Power Glove, and they fight and punch. And when I saw these trailers, and I kind of looked like, this looks more like Robot Jacks than Evangelion to me,
Right.
And with every trailer, it was the same thing. I just felt more and more like I was seeing a big. It was hard for me to tell, like, what the vibe of the film was. So, suffice to say, I had no real desire to see it. But when we, when it made no money at the theater, and when I looked at my local ArcLight and it wasn't even playing, I don't know. I felt like, well, is it getting killed by the studios? Like, what's up? Week 2, it's not at the ArcLight. That's crazy. So I had to go see it, and then I asked you if you'd like to review the movie. So you saw it before me. Tell me what you thought.
I wanted everyone in that movie to die. I felt nothing for them. They were boring, cookie cutters, stereotypical characters. I was basically waiting for the more fight scenes. I'd be falling asleep. Oh, look, another giant generic monster that looked like the last one. And then robot swinging his arms. And then back to boring character telling me what they're going to do. It just, I didn't like it. It was boring. It was cool special effects, but when it comes out on Blu-ray, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to get it.
And I largely agree with your sentiments, but let me elaborate a little bit more. Like, when I say boring, like, see, here's the thing, right? I didn't like the Hellboy movies. I was very excited for the Hellboy movies because I loved Blade 2. And,
Right.
I thought Blade 2 should have had more in it, right? But I loved the movie. And And when Hellboy came out, I had a hard time dealing with the film because for me, there's an element of Hellboy in the comics. There's a lot of solidarity. There's a lot of wandering around, Celtic backgrounds or graveyards and stuff. There's an
Mm.
ambiance, and I liken it to like in Seven, how they kind of like move throughout the city that's always raining. There's just a way of existing
There's a
in that.
mood to it.
Yeah, there's a place where they exist in the world, right? They just go to the library, they put on some music, they live in that world, they breathe in it. And for me, Hellboy was more like like Men in Black 2 and 3 where it's just an insane amount of like different effects that kind of top one another and there's zany creatures going around and isn't this kind of cool? Oh, look, wow, there's a giant tree monster. That's awesome, right? And all those things are
Right.
awesome, but there really isn't enough time for me to like get absorbed like and to live and breathe in the world.
Right.
And
Just
I
on to the
felt
next thing.
yeah, I sort of felt like this was the complete like this was the epitome of that. Like this was that like times 1,000. You know what I mean? Like this is for me the movie was kind of like it's like okay, did you ever see The Spirit?
Yes, and I hated that. I mean, beyond hated that movie.
So The Spirit's interesting, right? In that it sort of takes all the things that are normally in a Frank Miller comic book, right? Like if you remember Sin City, the one with the snow, or it's Marv walking around in the snow, and there's like
Right.
whole places where he says no, and it's all black, and you go and you read that and you go, wow, this is really cinematic. This is awesome. And then you see that sort of translated onto the screen, and you're like, this is retarded.
Yeah.
And and you're like, why is that? And there are ways to tell stories in comic books that are completely appropriate for the format because your mind sort of fills in the blanks and you have a limited page count. You know what I mean? Like you're reading through narrative and you're covering a lot of
Right.
area. And in a movie, when you try to like do that, when you try to take a whole paragraph and just spout off all that stuff in a film, to me, like that doesn't work. Like movies are there for you because they have sound and they have actual timing and there's you're there at its own pace. Um, you're not so much filling in the blanks as you're trying to be participatory, you know.
Right.
And when you're having things like thrown at you all the time, you can't participate in it. You're just trying to like take in all like the notes, you know.
Yeah.
So this movie, in my opinion, like it starts off with this narration, and for about I'd say like the first 3 minutes, I was like, okay, this might work. You know what I mean? Like this seems
Right.
kind of fun. You know, like, okay, we got the narration going on. Okay, this is going on great. You know, okay. And then it just keeps going, dude. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
keep explaining things to you and how things work and not like I'm gonna point out two movies I want to relate this to. I want to relate it to Star Wars: A New Hope, the first film, right? Star Wars,
Right.
and the first Matrix movie, right? Because to me, both are like excellent examples of films that take the comic book or in Star Wars and like pulp, right? Like Buck Rogers and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and samurai films. It takes popular culture, and the Matrix definitely takes comic books. You know, it was actually
Oh
the
yeah.
storyboards are a comic book. You know, so it takes those and it successfully merges it into a film medium where you exist, and they do explain things to you, but in a way that like when Obi-Wan explains the Force, it's a metaphysical thing. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
very simplistic explanation that allows you to fill in a lot of the blanks.
To make your
The-
own interpretation of it.
right, and if now I'm gonna take in a scene from Episode 4. So like Obi-Wan's talking to Luke, right? And he's like, "Your father fought with me in the Clone Wars, right?" And had Guillermo del Toro directed that scene in the same manner in which he directed Pacific Rim, at that moment we would flash into the Clone Wars. Okay,
Right.
there would be about a million. We'd just be in Episode 3 with unlimited like depth of field, duplicated CG stuff all over the effing place, monsters everywhere. The battlefield would be named, right? It would be like the Clone Wars. Trooper Gulch, right? Right? And they'd be like the troopers would be running down the hallways, like killing stuff, like doing backflips and giant flips and blowing stuff up, and they would be like having like explanations for every time they kill someone. It would be like
Right.
they'd be like, okay, don't bag the rabbits. You know what I mean? Don't bag
Right.
the
We ha-
don't catch a leopard in a hole. You know, like and you're like, what is
we,
catch
we
the
have to
leopard?
blow it up at its core, which is on level 4. Level 4 is 2 down, 1 to your right. You can
And
get
they're
there.
talking into their thing, and as you're talking in that, you travel outside the ship, go through this giant space battle while everything's exploding around you into the rebel frigate where Obi-Wan's sitting there and he's talking and he looks at his screen and he's relaying back while he simultaneously has another conversation with two other zany, the droids, right, on the bridge, who are then running around. You know what I mean? Like it like hyper. It's like I don't want to say hyper focus because that's not the word. It's like ADHD, dude. And this is all within the span of like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you zoom all the way back to the other ship where like he's already like crashed in there, and then Vader and him are fighting, and they already do their thing, and then you go back into Luke and him, and they're already moving to Tatooine, and it's like, wow, that was like epic, like there was all this epic stuff going on, and I'm like, no man, that's like it's like the bad parts of Image Comics where you buy a book and there's nothing but splash pages,
Right.
and all this shit exploding, and it's not like something cool where there's a lot of graphic design thrown in and imagery. It's like it's just a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really, like, to me, none of the stuff in this movie. I don't know what the character arc is for the hero of the film. You got a main
Or their
character,
names.
right? You got a main character who's supposedly have someone he's close to, so they can both team up and drive robots. He loses that someone in the beginning of the film, exiles himself, which we're not even gonna get into the specifics of how that works in that world.
That
Just
was
takes off, disappears, right?
ridiculous.
Just takes off, disappears, gets a
No,
job.
no tracking system on this military.
Whatever. I mean, they don't even want to debrief him. Did he just at least get his walking pace? Did he get a physical check out? You know what I mean? Did he hit like the Skid Row or whatever name they come for the
He got a
dropping
pat
block?
he gave him a pat on the ass and just said, "Go on your way."
Right. So and then they bring him back because I don't know why. You know what I mean? Like they have plenty of
millions
candidates,
of people,
but they
millions
have plenty of
soldiers.
candidates. You see what I'm saying? Like
Right.
they could have picked anybody. There was no specific reason for it to be him other than he's Tron guy. Now, I understand this isn't the guy from the movie Tron, but I'm going to call him Tron guy because I thought he was. Looks a lot like him. And to me, he acts just like the guy in Tron, where you have a movie where the guy's just the hero for no matter what. Kind of like The Matrix, only I hate this guy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like he's
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Like I hated Tron guy. I was like he has a nice life. He has cool motorcycles. He lives in the coolest place ever. He's like a rich kid. You know what I mean? The guy he lost his dad, but I mean, kind of not.
He made
like,
out. He made out. He won the lottery afterwards, basically.
right? Like, fucking, I hate Tron guy. So this is Tron guy to me, and Tron guy. And also I can't remember any of the names in the movie, man. Like,
No,
they just
none of
talk so fast. I honestly couldn't keep up with
You could
all
pick
the
any
names.
stereotype name for any of them.
Right, so Tron guy gets picked to come back for no other reason than he's supposed to, okay? And because they want to have him hook up with this chick, and the chick, she can't do anything, but the chick selected like 50 other candidates. You see what I'm going with this? Like, and there's all these candidates, but it's going to be her, but you just got to kind of get through all the scenes so it can be her, and then we can find out her tragic story, and why she can't fight. Because this guy was so caring about her not being hurt. He brought her to work at the place where they fight all the monsters. I don't know. You know what I'm saying, dude? It's like I just don't understand what the character arc is. Like what happened at the end of the film? How did he grow? How was he traumatized by his brother's loss and made a difference? Like what happened? You know what I mean? Like no one grew here. They just did what the narrative needed them to do. And I've been saying this for a long time. It's like And you could kind of just go back to like episode 1, right? Star Wars episode 1, where you just have these like really generic, like they got the Joseph Campbell template for the hero's journey, right? The call to adventure. They just took the class, they wrote down the notes, they bought the book, they wrote down the little diagram notes, because I have it, it's highlighted. I've read it 100 fucking times. I read Hero with the Thousand Faces and the Power Method. I got them fully highlighted. I know them backwards and forwards. And they just write down the fucking things, and that's their 3-act structure for their fucking screenplay. And then now they're just filling it with as much generic geek shit as they can, right? Packing it dense. So there's all these things to kind of wow and entertain you. And at the end, I'm supposed to care. And I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I haven't begged to be released from a film so badly since The Spirit. Like, I honestly was like, please, God, make it end. Like,
There's a couple times too where I thought it was gonna end, but then there's more. Like you think, okay, it's over. It's
See,
not
I
over.
knew it wasn't over because they kept giving the monsters power level numbers, like at a Dragon Ball Z or X-Men 3 or some shit,
Right.
and they hadn't got to like a big enough number for me to feel like it was ending anytime soon, you know?
Right.
And plus, during the whole movie, I'm like, why don't these guys just don't they have an escape pod? You know, like Evangelion has the escape tubes they shoot out the back. Don't they have an escape pod? No one escapes from their mechs. They just stand there and get killed. And then at the very end, these guys escape from their pods. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
why didn't anybody else escape from the pods? Like,
They,
why
they go down with the ship. They
why did, what the hell? The movie makes no sense, man. Like, and yet I'm told it's the best movie of the summer. Which
everyone
is
on everyone Facebook, Twitter. Oh, it's amazing. I don't see it. It just
so right now. Tell me, okay. So we've kind of like went on a rant. So let's bring it down to like three things. You know, you couldn't stand the most, and three things that you thought were actually like that kept you, because you obviously you did sit through it. So there had to be some reason. You know what I mean? Like, because my reason, I'll get into that. You know, or whatever. So just tell me like what were like let's say two things that you really liked and didn't like about the film.
I liked the little Asian girl actress. She's the only one I believed in that whole movie to have any kind of scare. Like she was actually, when she was scared of the giant monster and she's holding her hand up and she's crying, I actually cared about her. I was like, oh shit, this little girl's really seeing a monster. She's the only one who actually could act. That was probably my favorite part, was the little Asian girl. Um, the robots look nice. The 3D was pretty cool. The first couple minutes with the choppers and the plane shooting, I was like, okay, this is gonna be good. And then every other fight scene was pretty much the same, just wide arm swings of robots in 3D. But
All right, so you like the effects and
yeah,
you like
like
her character. So
I
and what
like
you don't like, right? I'm trying to like get these down to like
yeah,
listed, you know. So you
I, I
like
would-
her character, Mako, right?
yeah, I like the
And
little Asian chick, the little tiny one when she was a little girl.
oh, and
I
she's
like
a
that.
girl. You don't like her
Just the
grown
girl,
up.
not the grown up. No, not at all. But
Okay.
the little scared Asian girl who's running through the town and getting chased, and it's all in her dream world or whatever, reliving it. I like that character. That's the only character I like. That whole 5 minutes of her.
Okay. And you like the visual effects basically.
Yeah, I mean the special effects were insane. I mean they spent a lot of money on that. I mean it was cool. I mean the monsters start to look the same in all his movies. I mean the some of the monsters with their mouth opening up with the blue
Well,
glow.
it's all just Cthulhu, you know,
Yeah,
Mignola inspired stuff. You know what I mean? Like
right.
that's all it is. It's just Cthulhu monsters. So okay, so you like the effects, you like that little girl. What are the two things you dislike the most?
I'd have to say the acting. I felt nothing for those characters. They didn't change. The characters didn't change in the movie from the first 5 minutes to the last 5 minutes. There wasn't much change, progress with them. I wanted them all to die. I just wanted them all to be crushed and humanity destroyed. You know, the wrath of whatever God you believe in was coming down on us. We all deserved it because we're all idiots. Because
So if
every
J. Edgar Hoover, right, were to be summoned, J. Edgar Hoover would come down and smite them all, right?
just take them all out. I just wanted
Right.
everyone to perish in that movie. They are all just horrible. Um, Also, somehow the supposed to be military part of this movie where they all just they quit the program. It's over. Like the guy just goes away for 5 years, no tracking, nothing. And then some people on the telescreens, like in the Avengers, are in charge, and they say, "All right, we're shutting you down." Everybody just goes, "Okay, guess we're just done. Let's pack it up." You know, who cares? And then they just go on. That was it. That was just bad. So
Right.
I'd have to say horrible character development and just no logic to military systems of these robots other than they say they're military, but it's not. I don't
Right.
know.
Okay. So I'll name two things that I enjoyed here. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the score was all right. You know what I mean? Like it would help you build some momentum. You know.
Right.
Thought the music was pretty good. And is there anything else?
You gotta try hard for that second one.
Because I don't really care for the special effects, honestly, dude. You know, like, and I'll get into the reasons why in a minute. I mean, look, there's a lot of really well done effects. However, um, it's an effect. There's no way do I believe any of that stuff really exists. You know what I mean?
Right.
Okay, I like that they had a lot of set, like the set designs. I always like Guillermo's set designs, like Hannibal Chow's, laboratory and stuff, like with the glossy floors. I like that. I
Right.
like
There's stuff in the background.
the actual physical set locations. I enjoy when like they're actually punching in computer buttons and knobs and stuff.
Right.
That I like. When right next to them there's a giant green screen that goes off into kaleidoscope colorland, like it looks like a prismascope, fucking the color design on this film is atrocious. So like, and it's just like the repeated robots for 300 feet, like the last Starfighter shot, right? When he walks
Yeah.
in, there's a big CG Starfighter hangar room. I've been seeing this since the last Starfighter. I don't care, like I'm not that impressed. So I like the set design. I like the music. The two things I dislike the most are the script. I really dislike the script. Now, that doesn't mean I dislike the world and what the guy came up with. I dislike the script, the execution of that world entirely. And honest to God, man, and I don't know if this has been brought up or how often this has been brought up, but I really, really dislike the pseudo political messages that have no. I don't believe. Okay, like, let me get into this. I don't. I think in all popular fiction, science fiction, pop fiction, comics, whatever you want, that there's room to have discussions about real world problems within those settings, right?
Right.
So like Star Trek Into Darkness had, fallout from like 9/11 stuff, right? Like
Right.
arms, secret building of arms stuff and to my, to an extent, if you remember the Dark Knight had like, tapping into cell phones and how far do you need to go to capture criminals kind
Right.
of
Shut
stuff.
it down. All that.
Right, the Born Identity had, building, secret programs and stuff like that. And so I think that's all well and good. The problem where it gets corny, and I'll say Avatar kind of makes this mistake too, right? Like Avatar does it well, and then it completely f's it up, and like in the same movie. Where on one hand, I think it's a great conversation to have about how responsible are corporations for humanitarian efforts. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you send Blackwater, or sorry, what's that one fucking not Enron? I always call it Enron. Halliburton. You send Halliburton over to put out fires in Iraq, but they're really there to, you know what I mean, also develop and maintain oil fields. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like, and they could care less about the indigenous population. I think that's a great conversation. But then when you have like a 5 minute speech about fighting terror with terror, it's just right on the nose, right? It's like, oh man, do we have to listen to this shit now? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? We're gonna shock and awe them kind of crap, and it's just like it's just cheesy. And this movie throws in like those political kind of things out of nowhere, and then completely abandons them. Like it doesn't even like okay, building the wall, we're gonna keep the illegal aliens out. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
all right, Guillermo, okay. And then it's like they were gonna be here before, but they killed off the dinosaurs, and now they're waiting for you to pollute the planet. And you know what I'm saying, dude?
Yeah.
It's like I'm just like, where are they going with this? Like now we gotta like fight pollution too, dude. Like, it's the end of the fucking world, man. Like I just can't figure what's the point of it. But that gets back to the script. The reason why I don't like the script is I wanted to call this movie Exposition Rim, dude. Like everyone's talking all the time, and they're explaining everything to you because it's impossible to glean what's going on by just visually watching it. It's impossible.
Right.
Guy taps into the Matrix and merges with the stupid, monster brain, and then he's gonna give you their entire life story. You know what I mean? Like,
Why
and that
not
gets
just do
back to
that 5 years ago?
well, why didn't Hannibal Chow tell them when he fucking merged with the monsters? You think that would be valuable information? You know what I mean? Like, hey, by the way, they're coming to kill us all because they killed the dinosaurs. I mean, right? Like, there's just no. Okay, this gets back to the world building where it's like, okay, they're linked together. Let's start this basic premise. You have a robot. We're linked together. So the guy's like, hey, are you mad at me? He's like, you're gonna find out soon because you're gonna be in my head. So the question is, well, when they're linked, are they acting as one person? Or are they busy taking off in the Matrix having like fun adventures in memory land? Because I don't know what the fuck's going on, dude. Can
Right.
they see what they're doing? Are they simultaneous? Like I always felt like Inception managed to show like people experiencing different levels of reality at different points of time, and it used the rate of time as a way to show what level people were on, right? So the closer
Right.
to reality they are, the slower things moved, right?
Right.
So by the time they fall off a bridge, they had this whole giant adventure. And as they're having the farther into the mine they go, the quicker things occur into real time.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really interesting storytelling mechanic. This is like Professor Xavier. We step in that fucking room and like we're zooming around all these
zooming
people.
around, not knowing
Right,
what's
but
going
while
on.
we're zooming around all these people, we're also fighting Magneto, right?
Right.
And we're having conversations, with people on the battlefield simultaneously while we're in Cerebro. I don't know, man. I don't find that clever world building. I just find that to be like lazy and to me non-committal. Like you need to explain how this works. Like the Matrix
What's
is probably
the benefit
best.
of it?
What's the benefit?
Okay,
they
we
can't.
merge minds, and I see your past. I see 5 minutes ago when you went to the bathroom, and then you ran into me. But how's that help you destroy a monster?
They say that one person's the left hemisphere and one person's the right. So one person should be the strategist and one person's using emotion. Right? Does this guy, this girl has revenge on her mind, Mako, right?
Right.
She exemplifies ton of rage and emotion. She has a whole thing where she almost kills everybody, right? The minute they put her in the fucking thing. But she was on the left side, if I remember right. So
yeah,
she wasn't
was
even
on the left.
So which makes no sense. She should have been on the right side. But then this guy, so is he strategy? Like, is he the brains? Because he doesn't seem very smart. She seems to be the brains in the real world. Right?
What she tells us in the first 5 minutes of the movie is that he's never been smart. He's just been a fighter. That's why him and his brother are robot fighters. He's like, yeah, I've never been one for brains.
He was on the left side too in the other robot, wasn't he?
Right. Yeah.
In the very beginning of the film. See, do you understand what I'm saying, Brandon? Like the movie just and I don't even mean like suspension of disbelief. I just don't know what to believe. You know what I mean? I don't know what the movie believes. Here's what I think. I think Guillermo is a passionate ultra geek who wants to see a lot of things, and he wants to build a lot of movies that have a lot of things that he loves. And as a guy who's pitched comics to guys to publishers, there's always this desperate move where you're like, I'll come up with just a bunch of cool shit to draw, and we'll loosely design a story around it, right? So I'll get this world that's like, I did this once where he came up with a world that was all like a giant Las Vegas, and you start to come up with all these things you can do in that world because it'd be fun to draw all this stuff, but there's no story. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing there behind it. It's just an excuse to draw all these things. And for me, that's what this is. It's an excuse to make toys and have monsters and robots, and there's all these cool things, and if, you don't, and then all this other stuff is thrown in, and if you throw enough at the wall, eventually you might look like you're a genius. That's what I feel, But I feel that if your stuff in any moving picture can just sit back, breathe, and exist, and I'm all there completely, like Luke walking outside and staring at the sun, is the best scene in episode, New Hope and Star Wars, then all the special effects,
Right. You don't even have to say anything. It's just the scene of it. You just see everything that's going on. He wants to get out of there. He wants to get off that planet. He wants to see everything else. They didn't have to say, oh, I want to get out of here. I want to do this. It's just a simple scene. And this movie was just like, we're going to tell you everything that's going on every 10 seconds.
At the very end, and I'll take this to the end of the movie now, because I'll tell you the point where I never talk during films. I don't believe in it, Yeah. I'm an ultra cinephile, and I literally just threw my hands up in the air at the very end of the film when these two scientist guys, J.J. Abrams and Willard, decide to fucking, because that's who they look like, dog.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams and Willard link up into the mine, and they have a vision from a fetus.
You mean their bonding moment? Their nice
from a fetus.
Moment.
They're in the fetus, which is very clever, Guillermo. And they have this whole they're able to glean all of the intelligence, whatever. So they somehow figure out that you have to pretend to be, you have to be a Kaiju to get into the Kaiju tunnel and kill them and shit and pull off the Independence Day move. So they get on the mic. First they fly from Hong Kong to Antarctica in about 3 seconds, run all the way into the control room, and then let these guys know on the phone. And as fast, I mean, it was like the Micro Machine guys. Remember the Micro Machine guy?
Right.
It's like he came on the film and just started to explain all this stuff. I don't know anything they said. I couldn't tell you one word, dude.
If you can build an 80-foot, 100-foot robot, you can't pick up a cell phone and relay this message. I mean, I know it was building he's got to run, he's got to hurry, he's got to run into the control room and grab the, drive-through microphone and yell into it what not to do. But just to add on that pissed me off. It's like you couldn't have just phoned that into base. You couldn't have just, hey guys, before you spend the next 20 minutes going somewhere. That annoyed me. I was pretty pissed about that. But yeah.
And it's just like I just gave up. My hands went in the air, and I literally looked at my buddy. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know what to do anymore with this. I mean, if movies like The Amazing Spider-Man are lazy to me, this is almost irresponsible. Like the confusion from the film isn't because of bad marketing. It isn't because, these things wouldn't translate into an exciting film. It's because the movie has no purpose. It has no point. It has no values. It's simply there to exist as robots fight monsters. And it's going to, in as many words as it can cram in the 2.5 hours it ran on or whatever, it's going to cram as much in there as humanly possible. I say, had this been a graphic novel, it would have been a fun read probably, because I could
Right.
sit there and reread explanations over and over again.
Yeah.
It'd give me something to read and reread over. But as a film, it just falls apart,
Think
And
they'll
it's,
make a sequel?
I'm surprised they're gonna finish Godzilla, dude. You know what I mean? Like, if Godzilla completely tanks, this will be the last we see of giant monsters in the United States for a long time.
Right.
No, there will be no sequel. It's not doing that well overseas, and that's another thing too. Like, if you're like, well, it won't find your audience, here. Well, it should have found it over there because the Resident Evil movies do really well overseas. That Three Musketeers fucking film killed
God,
overseas.
I hate the
You
Resident
know,
Evil movies.
so it's like, okay, well, where's its audience? You know what I mean? Like, where's this supposed to go? And I'm gonna tell you, there's no audience because no one gives a shit about the characters.
No,
You know,
not at all.
except the ultra geeks. They're blinded, and I think my final criticism from like the fans' reaction of this that I don't understand is I'm being told that well, this movie is really great because they have ethnic characters who are main characters. It's not a big whitewash movie. It's not a movie filled with white people, and that there's all these extra it has people from Russia and Aussies, and I'm looking at like I have Australian friends, and I've lived in Germany. I know a lot of people from Russia. And these are like Capcom's versions of like
Right.
ethnic, of like
Super
Japanese.
stereotypes.
Yeah, like the Russian guy looked like Zangief, dude.
He had a beard, big blonde, slick back hair, I think. I
It
mean,
looked like Bridget Nielsen cosplay and the Zangief from the Street Fighter
oh
movie,
man.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and they walked in low camera angles, so they look tall, broad shoulders. They're holding their helmets, perfect, just mean motherfucker or mean mothers.
You can curse, dude.
Okay,
Yeah,
just they meant to look like the badass. I mean, all they needed was to have them take off their uh, shirts and have like a USSR or something tatted on their chest, or just something really just over the top. It was just that bad. And daddy issues in the movie with everyone. I don't know. I didn't like the movie. I did not like it at all. It was a waste of my time. I enjoyed bashing it more with you than I did watching the movie. This is more exciting than, and we still talk less than they did in the movie. Like this is
That's actually true.
our rant right now is just probably 2 minutes of the movie. That's
Well,
what
it's also a rant that's focused on talking about the film. Even though I've jumped around here and there to make my point, I believe this rant has more focus than definitely the first 37 minutes of the film.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I don't get how this was the best film of the summer. I don't get that at all.
Only if there was no other movies this summer. That's
Um,
that's the only way it gets number one movie.
right. I mean, I enjoyed Star Trek greatly. I thought, that you take 4 years to make that story. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like let's hope it doesn't take 4 years to do. Seems like it's immediate fallout from the first film. It's pretty simple narrative. It's got a lot of character exploration on certain levels, and
Right.
obviously a big war coming in that universe. Okay, great, let's move on. But this was the complete opposite, dude. This is like, I don't know, man. I just don't get it, dude. So
Also, the ending, which I mean, I refer to it as the Avengers ending, and you said Independence Day, but which I really hated, where he drops his suit, he floats back through the portal before the bomb goes off, and then a hug brings him back to life. You know, I just there's nothing that
Well,
seemed
that is that.
newer.
I mean, the dropping the bomb in the whatever is the Independence Day, but yeah, the exact point where they hug him at the end and he wakes up. That is the ending to Avengers. Not that they saw the movie and wrote that down. I'm sure that's been done about 100 fucking times.
Right. But that stereotypical ending where the love interest hugs
He
him
should
or
have
holds
stayed
him.
and died. I would have cared more about the film if he just sacrificed himself. Like that would everyone like I hear is like, oh, they don't care about killing off main characters. They didn't kill off any main characters.
Yeah.
They killed
Nobody.
off the guy no one liked. You know what I mean? The guy the Aussie kid, and then Elvis Idro. I can't ever pronounce his fucking name, dude. They killed off the Thor guy, and fucking. But he was dying anyway. I mean, that's like they killed
Yeah.
Obi-Wan in Star Wars. I mean, I don't know how. You know what I mean? Like, so what? Like, I was like, oh, maybe they'll kill this guy. That's like I thought the real ballsy thing to do in Star Trek would have been to kill Kirk. Just let him die. Like that would have been like what? You know what I mean? Then deal with
Right.
all that shit in the next film, like how they managed to, you know what I mean? Like fix it. Like that would
And
have been.
not even the pedestrians in the movie when the monsters are going through the cities, it didn't even show anybody really dying. Like no stepping on people, no people falling out of
Well,
buildings,
here's the
nothing.
thing, dude. I mean, okay, let's spend. I'll spend 10 minutes. Let's just call this what is it? What's the word?
Collateral damage.
Collateral damage, right? Like, okay, parts of the movie that make no sense to me, okay? So I'll name one and then you name one, right?
All
So the first part of the movie that made no sense to me. They build a wall, right? As a reaction to the giant robots don't work. We're going to build a wall now. So we spent 5 years building a wall. In that time, no other monsters attacked.
Right. No,
But the
none.
whole movie, they got a clock where they can't go 14 hours without a monster attacking. So did not one monster attack in 5 years, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
or is that just not something? You know what I mean? Did like like obviously some monster had to attack, right? I mean that's a giant ass
Something.
wall, you know.
I mean, maybe like some level 0.5s attacked, but no, apparently level 4s where they just go through and tear shit apart. And because when one finally did attack, it took them, they said, an hour to destroy that building or the wall they spent 5 years building.
Yeah.
That was just
So the monster just waited 5 years and then sent out the next wave. See, there's
the
no like.
monsters sound like dicks. The monsters are probably just sitting there like,
Well, I said
"Hey,
they
look at
sound
those
like Fraggles. I have
right."
this theory that the movie, and here's my theory, right, is that this is actually all Fraggles. That all the Kaiju are what the Fraggles will ultimately become, right? Because if you look at and observe Fraggle behavior, okay, what do? They walk up to the dozers and they just munch and destroy all their shit, right? Well,
Right.
they look kind of like Fraggles to me, dude. You know what I mean? They live in caves, they live underground, they come up, they knock over shit. They sing and who knows what they're doing on their own world. They sing
Right.
and dance, they have parades, you know. But yeah, they definitely display Fraggle like behavior.
They're just assholes. They're waiting. They're watching. Like, hey, check out these humans building this wall. It's my turn. Let's knock this shit down.
Nom, 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 nom.
Uh,
All right, so what about you?
oh God. How they name the monsters. That was just like shark nose or hammer
Knife
face
head.
or
Have you never
knife
seen
head.
it? Have
That's
you ne-
just
have you never seen the monster?
right. We're just gonna name it like tropical storms, just random shit. Like that's Sam or Susie, and just
Well, I guess it's supposed to have a giant knife head, but hard to tell in the fucking storm, right?
it looked like a shark face to me. I thought it was a street shark. It just needed some rollerblades and it'd be good to go. But that, I mean, and like you were saying, the levels. Okay, I couldn't tell the difference in the movie between a level 3 and a level 5. Maybe level 5 had a tail, maybe. But I mean that
Because there is no difference.
right.
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
maybe
It's
they
just a
had up on
number.
a
It's an
if they had a
arbitrary number.
yeah, if they had a screen that showed, okay, at 300 feet that's a level 3, and at 500 feet that's a level 5.
Well, I
Well,
try to explain it. Imagine if in Star Wars, if you had Star Destroyer level 3 and that's a Star Destroyer level 7, and they look exactly the same. Now you
yeah,
have a Super Star Destroyer, which is about 20 times the size of a normal Star Destroyer, eclipses all of them, right? And
yeah,
then you have a Death Star, and I'm like, well, that I can tell,
yeah.
I can see the difference here, like it's pretty evident to me.
I mean, how do these people even rate how would they know when something comes out of a portal what its levels are anyway. It's like saying,
Well,
oh,
why
that
did
guy
they
can
just
bench
build the
300.
wall around the fucking portal? Like, instead of building all these crazy walls, right, around the coastlines of all these random places, which I don't know how you do because coastlines are fractals. See, this gets back into, like, quantum theory. You ever try
Right.
to walk around a coastline? How could you build a fucking wall around an entire coastline? So, like, how much wall would you need? Wouldn't you just go to the fucking portal and just build a dome over it? You know what I mean? And just keep layering levels of dome?
Yeah, anything. Just,
I mean, like, I don't know. Like,
I would just, every day I would just dump concrete,
and we
poles,
just kind of stuff
bricks,
neutron bombs in there all the time and just explode them. And
just
I mean,
anything.
they don't ever guard that fucking thing, right?
Not at all. They just wait. They're like, oh shit, something's coming out of the water again. It's, it's piranha face.
And they can go into space too. You notice that? Like, I didn't
Yeah,
know that they could fly into space.
which is just ridiculous. But it's just an added special feature to the movie where it just shows a flying one, pterodactyl, pterodactyl bird, and then they always have to go to some drug. It's another one that bugged me. They always have to go to some drug dealer, black market guy who can only get this. I mean,
Yeah, the
they can build.
government had never repoed all those fucking kaju. So when a kaju drops, all the fucking slum guys are hawking it up. The government's
Like
never
they
secure that
don't go get
shit.
it.
You know, like when a plane crashes in the middle of a city, you don't see the mob out there fucking running through all the bags, right?
Right.
Like
Oh, let's pick
gypsies.
up these guns and propellers and shit.
Right, like the Bedouin out in World War II, you know, like loot picking the fucking troops, you know, like you remember the beginning of Patton, how they're
Yeah.
out there like snaking boots and shit. It's like, why? Where's the fucking governments? You know, like you think the Chinese government's gonna let some fucking white guy come in there and just start looting all that expensive good? Like, are you kidding me, dude?
He's got shiny shoes though. So I mean that, ooh. That really bugged me that our main scientist for the world, he needs something, but he can't just get it. He's got to be like, oh, we're gonna send you by yourself with a flashlight and I don't know, gift card. I don't know what the hell he had, postcard with holographic on it to go to a black market by yourself to get something we need to save us.
Yeah, I know. No armed escort. Not
Yeah,
bring Hannibal Chow here. I don't
yeah,
know.
just
Call
nothing.
up the UN. Let them go
How
down there
about
and
how
deal.
about send those other 49 candidates that wanted to be robot fighters with him? I mean, that would have been a better use of them
Where did
than
they get them? Where did they pull them in from, dude? Were they selected like the Hunger Games? Like, I mean, dude, look, I hated the Hunger Games, but I got to give that movie credit at least like it was explained, you know, on some absurd level, you know, what the
yeah,
hell was going on,
the
dude,
story moved along.
you know.
I actually care more. I didn't think I'd ever say this, but I care more about Cadmus than I do any other character in Pacific Rim. I want to go
uh,
watch Hunger
no,
Games
no,
now.
let's
So I can
no. Want is not the word. I would rather. That
rather.
I
There we
think we
go.
have to be very careful about the choice of words we use here.
Yeah, I'd rather watch it.
All right. Well, I think we've said pretty much, you know, all
Enough
that.
hateful things.
I mean, we could go another hour, but what's the point, right?
All right. Well, another hour we'd be making the movie. Just another hour of the same thing.
Right. Well, you know, that's the brilliance about film, you know, or any other artistic medium, you know. You either like it or don't like it. And just because I like one movie and I don't like another doesn't invalidate your or my opinion any more than the other. The trick is to have a really clear and exact reasoning for why you don't like it and be able to explain, you know, in certain detail how it sort of didn't work for you. And again, I'll just say I prefer to exist in a world. That's why I love about The Dark Knight. They do very little explanation, as opposed to say Batman Begins or Dark Knight Rises, where they're explaining shit every 3 seconds. I don't like that. I just want to watch characters do things, you know,
Right.
and I can piece it together, man. I think the audience is smarter than you give them credit for,
Yeah.
you know.
When you explain everything, it takes away from the imagination. It takes you out of the world of just what you think and how you interpret it. When they just tell you exactly
Well,
what
but
you should be thinking.
yeah, you know, and you know, I think the movie, like a movie recently that does it pretty well, would be like Drive, right? Where
Right.
there's very little explanation. It's a very pretty much silent film, but I get everything that's going on, you know.
Yeah. I just watched that
I
the other night,
Yeah,
and
you know.
I didn't. I just sat there and watched it. I didn't need to. I mean, he's quiet as shit. I thought he was deaf for a while. I mean, he was pretty mute.
Remember that scene? Speaking of it, I'll wrap this up. That last scene in the movie that I love is when when James Brooks is looking at Hannibal Chow, and and he realizes he has to let him kill the drive guy, and so he just looks at the shit bag at the dinner table, and like
Yeah.
James Brooks just just like motions like you know what I mean? It was almost like a scoop, you know.
Right.
And so then Hellboy goes, and then he walks and stabs him in the eye. Like I don't need an explanation, I got what was going on there,
Yeah.
That was a brilliant scene. Yeah, that was more. I felt more pain in that scene than that entire. I mean, I felt pain for going to see Pacific Rim, but it wasn't the same kind of pain.
All right.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, thanks for joining me on this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I think we should have a discussion about the X-Men films. That'd be kind of fun. We can get into those since Wolverine's coming out soon.
Right.
And I've had requests to cover all the X-Men movies.
Train jumper. Train jumper Wolverine.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll break it up into X1 and 2,
Uh-huh.
right? And then we'll move into X3 and Wolverine. You know what I mean? Like, and how those and First Class, right?
Right.
And then we'll sort of like, I think that's pretty good. Or should we? Yeah, I think that's cool because 1 and 2 are pretty good, and then
Yeah.
3 and Wolverine suck. But First Class we're talking about, and then we'll get
Yeah.
into this Wolverine thing because, everything else that's going on in the world of fucking comic books. I'll be doing this movie stuff about once a month, unless we have something to talk about. But Brandon seems to keep up on films, and he actually reads comics, which I don't read that many these days. So, good for you, dude.
I try. It's few and far between now, but I still pick up a few here and there.
So, where can anyone find you and your stuff, Brandon?
www.notworthasketch.com, or on Facebook, Brandon James, and Twitter at notworthasketch.
All right, I'll make
I
sure I have a
love
link in
Twitter.
the show notes and everything.
Yeah.
And as always, folks, you can find me on the Deviants, YouTubes, Twitters, Facebooks, Pinterests, Instagrams, everything and in between. As always, thank you for listening to the podcast. If you have any questions, feedbacks, quips, quells, comments, bitchies, whatever, send them to Skechcraft, that's the name of the podcast.com, sketch, C-R-A-F-T.com, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.